Just really enjoy Seamus Coleman. Full stop. Nathan, good morning to you.
God, I hope he can get to 4 out of 10 tonight. That's what we need.
Nathan,
4 out of 10.
Do you know what I've been thinking?
Performance, Adrian.
Like, it's been a long season. You know the way, like, at the end of the season, you know, people just want to get away. They want to get to the beach, just enjoy a bit of time before the new season. This must be tough for you. How do you keep yourself motivated?
Well, going to watch Ireland games is a tough motivation at times, it has to be said. But, you know, I've taken one for the team and got myself to Copenhagen. I had my break. I had my couple of weeks on the beach, put the feet up, got myself rejuvenated.
It's in the background.
I was about to say, are they dumbbells?
Look at those dumbbells.
I'm a bit worried now because I haven't actually picked them up yet, so I'm not sure how heavy they're going to be.
What are you doing in a room with dumbbells?
I literally have no idea. I walked in and I had to take a second look. I thought, wait a second, are they actually dumbbells in this bedroom? I specially requested them, obviously, to continue my training.
I love the fact that you clocked them and then you didn't at any point go over and just, oh, maybe it's a kettle.
Oh yeah, 4 kg dumbbells. You want me to just keep working out while we're actually just on there?
Yeah, you can do that. I'd say we get about 30 seconds out of you.
Just worry you there, Owen.
Well, Owen's bike is cracked, but anyway, look, that's a story for later on.
Yeah, his bike is cracked. Yeah.
Here, you've been stirring the pot, obviously, over there, those little comments to Seamus Coleman. Is this sort of a real conversation, or is it just the typical kind of guff and we've nothing else too much to talk about in the lead into this game?
It's a bit of both, I think. There's certainly a media-driven angle to this, and when the Danish players came in for their press conference, Kasper Schmeichel and the captain Simon Kjær were in alongside Aga Harida, and they all looked a little bit perplexed by the talk of this rivalry and disrespect shown to the Irish players. But Thomas Delaney did describe Irish football as annoying. Christian Eriksen talked down the Irish performance after the games last winter. Matthias Jorgensen backed it up, said, listen, you can't read anything into Ireland 1 Georgia 0, Ireland 1 Gibraltar 0. It just shows that they're the exact same as they were previously. Very, very defensive side. Now, maybe those Danish players will say that they meant it in a complimentary way. It certainly didn't sound like it. It sounds like we've got under their skin a little bit, but they're not looking forward to this game tonight because they know that they're going to have to play all the football. They're going to have 90 minutes of Ireland just sitting there, not giving them any time on the ball, not giving them any space in behind. Or are we? That's the big question, that actually maybe they're going to be in for a little bit of a surprise tonight because everything Mick McCarthy has been suggesting. Yeah.
What do you think? Because that's like a big part of the question, isn't it? Like, are we going to see more of the Georgia game, or is it a little bit of revert type, given that it's a tough game away from home?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why this is such an important game. There's the obvious Euro 2020 factor in terms of qualification of how important it is. But like, there's this sort of eternal conflict of Irish supporters of the importance of the result and the importance of the performance. And we've come here twice in the last 18 months and got scoreless draws and stunk the joint out. Mick McCarthy said yesterday, if somebody offered him a point back in Dublin and said, you don't even need to go to Copenhagen, here's a point, he would have bitten your hand off for it. He will be absolutely thrilled if Ireland take a point tonight. Which raises the question of, well, what are we looking for then? Because if the result is the exact same as previously, we're obviously looking for something different in performance. And I think people want to see what they saw against Georgia, which is a bit of aggression, a bit of an inclination to get the ball down and pass it around, that when Conor Hourihane and Jeff Hendrick get it, that they're not just hoofing it forward, and particularly Glenn Whelan, because the one thing that stands out from last time was Harry Arter. Whether under instruction or not, every time he played in that position and won the ball back in the edge of his own area, not once did he look up, and he has it in his locker, and play a simple pass. He just hoofed it forward again and again and again. And that meant that Denmark ended up with 75% possession, and Ireland frustrated the life out of them. But I think you can probably have the mix. I can't see Ireland pressing high tonight consistently. It seems like it'd be an incredibly foolish game to go away to Denmark, arguably the best team in the group, and push high on them and potentially leave some space in behind. So I think all people want to see is a little bit more aggression, a bit of fight, a bit of pace to the team, and to come away thinking, all right, if we get a point, maybe we could have won that. Maybe we created a couple of opportunities. We tested Kasper Schmeichel, in contrast to the last 2 times going to Copenhagen, where we came home thinking, probably lucky to get away without losing that game.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Just kind of to touch on that just for a brief moment, the best team in the group thing. Do you actually think that Denmark are a better side than Switzerland, and that this is actually, by extension of that, our toughest game?
Well, Switzerland were pretty impressive against Portugal, probably for an hour, 70 minutes. Maybe it's just the Christian Eriksen factor. I think he's comfortably the best player in the group. And if you're against Denmark away from home and he's playing well and he plays well and he can dominate, I think he can dominate a team more than, say, Xherdan Shaqiri or Granit Xhaka can for Switzerland. So in that sense, that's why I think Denmark are probably the most dangerous team. Switzerland are going to be incredibly tough. Aga Harida touched on that yesterday. Obviously, Denmark's first game, they were 3-0 down away in Switzerland and had this unbelievable comeback, scoring 3 times in the final 10 minutes to get the point. He was making the point, well, Ireland still have to go to Switzerland as well in this sort of mini league between the 3 teams that are the 2 qualifiers are going to come from, that Switzerland's an unbelievably difficult place to go. So even though Ireland topped the group now, they've had 2 fairly straightforward home games. Seamus Coleman touched on this later in the press conference of, I don't get what the big deal is with this Denmark rivalry. We've played them 4 times. We've had 3 0-0 draws, 3 of the most forgettable games of all time, and 1 nightmare night in Dublin where they absolutely whipped us. It's just there's always this fear that even in those 0-0s, that if Denmark had got an early goal, that the 5-1 could happen again. But maybe we should have more confidence in the team that actually the 0-0 is a fair reflection of where the 2 teams are, rather than the 5-1 where we get that goal through Shane Duffy, the whole place erupts, we're pretty much booking flights to Russia, everybody loses the run of themselves, the team loses the run of themselves, Martin O'Neill completely loses the run of himself at half-time in that game, and they destroy us and humiliate us. Whereas, actually, as I say, maybe the reality is there's not that much difference between us, aside from Christian Eriksen.
Yeah, just like the idea of, like, I think we'd all go with the getting a 0-0 or 1-1 tonight, getting some sort of draw. I think it's a total result, but at the same time, there's something slightly sad about the manager coming out and saying, "Oh, listen, I wouldn't even travel. I'd just take the draw." Isn't there? Like, does it show a lack of ambition?
No, I don't think it shows a lack of ambition. It's probably typical Mick McCarthy, quite realistic. But also, McCarthy's different to O'Neill in that you look at Mick McCarthy's previous regime, away from home, did very, very little. There was no great standout results. Probably Iceland was the best team they beat. There was good draws away from home against Portugal and Holland, but they lost in Croatia, they lost in Russia, lost in Iran, lost in Yugoslavia. They drew, obviously, against Macedonia. Mick McCarthy was the flip of Martin O'Neill. Pretty much all the great performances came at home at the Aviva Stadium. So I would say he's looking at that again, that if we can go away from home, we can take a point at Denmark, we can take a point at Switzerland, hope that maybe Georgia do a job, but put the trust in his players that actually at the Aviva Stadium with a bit of momentum built, that they can replicate that Georgia performance time and time again. So it's typical Mick McCarthy realism that, listen, a point away from home against Denmark in terms of this whole group is a very good point. I just think it's the one downside of the Nations League, actually, is that it feels as though maybe this game has been diluted in importance, because we know that even if we finish 3rd in this group, we still have the fallback of the Nations League playoffs next March. So it maybe doesn't have this do or die sense that actually you can build some momentum. You can come 3rd in the group. There could be a good 3rd place finish in this group, that actually you're going into the Nations League playoffs next March feeling reasonably confident still of qualification, rather than, like tonight, generally you would look at this and go, well, if we lose, we're in serious, serious trouble in not qualifying for the Euros.
Yeah. Like from McCarthy's point of view as well, it does feel like just on that point about the approach and about the draw, it does feel as if it's, like, it is one of those kind of tenure defining moments, particularly for a guy who's only got a couple of years shot at this thing. It might be a game that people point to and go, like, Jesus, the 1-0 that we ground out in Denmark, this game tonight can end up defining Mick McCarthy's return.
Absolutely. This does feel as though it's the most important game of his time in charge, because it's such a short time in charge, and the games are going to come quick and fast after this break. So you presume we're going to beat Gibraltar. But we will now have a direct comparison with Martin O'Neill. We've played this team 4 times already. We were in Denmark just 6 months ago for that terrible last performance of the Martin O'Neill era. This time tomorrow, we could be reflecting on something similar. If it is that 0-0, as you say, if they turn up and it's the exact same again, there's little or no ambition to get on the ball, we scrape a draw, are we suddenly having a deep conversation about Irish football and the players and the lack of players coming through, and where's Matt Doherty? Yeah. Why is Glenn Whelan back in the team again? That actually, Mick McCarthy, even though he probably wouldn't admit it, is probably in something of a honeymoon period still. But if the performance tonight is lacking, considering they've had 2 weeks, they've had all the time in the world to focus on one game, and everything we've heard from former players is Mick McCarthy is very good at drilling things into players. As Owen said earlier, I think the players know the team already. Certainly 10 of them will be 10 who started against Georgia from last time out. The only decision is that one on the wing, whether it's Callum O'Dowda or Robbie Brady. So there's no real excuses here. And if it doesn't happen tonight, what is the next couple of months going to be like for Mick McCarthy? Has there been any real change? Look what Stephen Kenny's doing with the under-21s. Look at the style of football he's been able to implement already with just a couple of weeks for him. They're getting the ball down, they're passing it around, they're doing exactly what he said he would do, they're showing their technical ability. And that's Irish football. That's where, I guess, the result and the performance will dictate what happens over the next couple of months, and whether we're sort of looking forward to the end of the McCarthy era, or whether if things go well, he can start putting it out there of, maybe I'm not that happy to go on Euro 2020. What happened to the other guy who signed that contract?
Are you starting Robbie Brady tonight, Nathan?
If it was up to me, I would be starting Matt Doherty on that right-hand side. I just cannot see the sense in this at all, particularly when you look at the two players we're talking about starting ahead of him. Robbie Brady has started one game for Burnley since December. Started one game since the last international break. Played little or no football. Robbie Brady at full fitness, 100%. You have him in your Ireland team every day of the week. And Callum O'Dowda hasn't played any club football since the game against Georgia. So we're talking about two players who are rusty. We're talking about two players who aren't at the peak of their powers being selected against our best player right now. Matt Doherty was the outstanding Irish player in the Premier League last season, and I totally understand the conversation you were having with Stephen Kelly, and he's better coming from deep, but also the way Wolves play, he often picks up the ball further forward. He has to do a little bit of everything in that, and his confidence is absolutely sky high right now. He is a smart guy. They've had 2 weeks to train together. There's no reason why Mick McCarthy couldn't have done a huge amount of work over the last couple of weeks with Coleman, with Doherty, understanding when Coleman makes the run, understanding when Doherty makes the run. I just can't figure out why you don't get your best player on the pitch in a position that's not totally alien to him. It's not as if you're playing him in the centre of midfield, which I've heard other people suggest he could maybe do a job in there as well. He's not that far off what he's doing for Wolves. The only difference between playing for Ireland and playing for Wolves is that he doesn't have João Moutinho and Ruben Neves in the middle of midfield. And granted, I do think, maybe I'm contradicting myself, that when Matt Doherty does play for Ireland, he's on a bit of a hiding to nothing in that he's never going to be able to replicate exactly what he does for Wolves, because they're one of the best teams to watch in the Premier League. They're so well drilled. They play the same balls, diagonal balls from the back three to Doherty on the right touchline time and time again. But also, Neves and Moutinho dominate possession almost as good as any central midfield, probably aside from Manchester City in the Premier League. Ireland obviously don't have that type of player. But in saying all that, Matt Doherty, what he's shown this season, can do more than just play as a right wing back. Surely, with 2 weeks at a training camp, you can do enough with Coleman, who's also a very smart player, that they understand their role exactly. And I didn't think it was that bad in the first half against Gibraltar.
But here, is there no chance, like, are we all sort of barking up the wrong tree here? Is there any chance that, because it seems like the conversation, it's Brady or O'Dowda, wherever that's coming from, I don't know, that 10 of the 11 are going to start from the last game. So is there any chance that he pulls a Matt Doherty-shaped rabbit out of the hat here?
There is, and well done Mick McCarthy and Matt Doherty if you've done that, because Matt Doherty sat in front of the media earlier this week and said, yeah, I'm training as a right back. That's where I've been in training. That no suggestion at all that they've been plotting and planning anything and pulling a rabbit from the hat. And Mick McCarthy has suggested that as well. Matt Doherty's thoughts were that he just has to bide his time, and well, when the Seamus Coleman era comes to an end, that's when he'll get his chance. Or if there's an injury, that's when he'll get his chance. But you're right. Listen, maybe we're all going to be made look like complete fools, and he pulls a Martin O'Neill, and we look at the team and go, "Hey, what's going on here?" But all the suggestions have been that Matt Doherty won't be starting. And I heard Dan touching it, I think, on Wednesday morning as well. The other strange thing with all that is, like, Matt Doherty is more than likely going to come off the bench and play in that position for the last half an hour. And, without going all John Giles on it, if it's the right thing to do at the end of the match, why isn't it the right thing to do at the start of the match?
Good point.
Yeah. So I was reading some of the papers this morning. There's like a Philip Quinn travel diary. Sort of, they've been out and about on the bikes, himself and Paul Lennon, getting to see some of the sides of the city and sort of soaking up some of the atmosphere, like I think you should do on these trips on. That you'd be sort of what's happening in the world of Nathan Murphy. Have you been What culture have you been dipping your toe in?
Was it Kazakhstan or was it mines where you soaked up the atmosphere, Adrian?
Kazakhstan.
I just remember an away trip where there was there a cocktail bar and there was Adrian Barry behind the bar, that sort of sampling the atmosphere.
Yeah, where was that?
Where was that, indeed? Well,
that was Poland.
Since I have my kettlebells, obviously I'm fully focused there. Came home early last night. I've become a triathlon bore. I was talking to Gavin McAllister from the Sponsors 3, and he's a triathlon bore as well. He said, it's a nice little, from where you are, there's a nice little 3.5 kilometre run down to the Little Mermaid statue. Should go do that in the morning. And I said, you know what? I will. And I look there. It's 4K. I presume I have to cross lots of roads, so that'll mean nice little stops along the way. So that's my entire aim for the morning, is to somehow get to that Little Mermaid statue.
Good man. Well, enjoy it, and good luck with the kettlebells there, and good luck with the game tonight. One word prediction there? What's happening tonight?
1-1.
Right, very good. That'll do it. Good man. Good luck. Enjoy.
All right, take it easy, lads.
Nathan Murphy live on the line there from Copenhagen.